right, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We appreciate your patronage if you're watching real time as a Patreon patron or as a YouTube subscriber. If you are doing either of those, or if you're not, please try to remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. That's in the show description right below this picture. That'll help us. We get paid. It costs you nothing, not a zero. So please remember to do it. You have to do it each month. So if you haven't done it in a while, then it's probably time to relink. And again, it's really easy to do.
This episode of Pachter Factor is brought to you by DeShazer Ryan Realty. Right now, Doug DeShazer has beautiful lots available adjacent to Koocanusa Lake in northwest Montana. Pull up your RV and access the hookups, or build your own construction. Either way, you have access to world-class fishing, hunting, boating, swimming, biking, hiking, and the internet. No matter where you're looking to buy, make Doug DeShazer your real estate consultant at 406-291-1643. That's Doug DeShazer at 406-291-1643.
Okay, today's question from SIFTD from Kevin. Phil Spencer of Xbox recently said that PlayStation would no longer receive exclusive betas for franchises like Call of Duty once the current contract expires. How big of a loss is this for PlayStation? How much do you think PlayStation was paying for it? Good question. I don't know. I don't know that the beta changes your decision to buy a PlayStation. So I think only to the extent that there is a person out there who doesn't yet own a PlayStation, who would only buy a PlayStation if he could play a beta for Call of Duty. Does it hurt PlayStation? Does it anger the PlayStation player? Yeah, of course. But does it cost PlayStation anything? No, it's not their fault. How much were they paying for a beta? I mean, we're talking about early access for a week. My guess is that Sony was giving Activision a discount on the royalty. So, if on a $70 game, the royalty's 30%, which is a lot, $21, they were probably discounting it to $20 if you give us a 1 week early beta or 3 week early beta. Not enough to make a difference, but I think that Microsoft's not going to do it because they want Xbox to thrive. Will Sony lose PlayStation sales? Like I said, hardly any. I can't believe there's a Call of Duty hardcore player who hasn't bought a PlayStation yet, who's going to suddenly start playing on PlayStation because he's going to drop his PC gaming habit, or because he's going to get rid of his Xbox. I don't think that person exists. So probably nothing really monetary to Sony, but realistically, it's just one of those things that Microsoft can do that favors the Microsoft brand at the expense of the PlayStation brand. And again, not material, just a little knife in the back. And remember, Sony was out there objecting to the Microsoft acquisition of Activision consistently across the board. I think had Sony initially said, we have no problem with this acquisition as long as we continue to have access on PlayStation, the result would have been different. But Sony was a pain in the butt the entire process and commented all the time. And if you remember, the FTC gave up and the EU ruled in Microsoft's favor. It was only the UK that caused problems, and they published all the comments, and all the negative comments came from Sony. So I think Sony caused its own problem by objecting to the deal. Who knows what their lawyers thought, but the deal was inevitable. It was going to happen. So it was really, Sony managed it very poorly, and ultimately, remember, Microsoft was going to give them a much longer contract. They ended up getting a shorter contract on their guarantee for Call of Duty. So they did this to themselves. The perception that Call of Duty's attached to PlayStation was always the extra content, was always like back in the DLC days. Getting the DLC first. Remember the 1 month, 2 month, 3 month exclusives on Call of Duty DLC, which has kind of gone away. I mean, we used to have it, but they've turned that stuff into season passes, and it's changed. But I remember when Dennis Durkin from Xbox took over the Activision CFO role. That's when that switched from Microsoft getting DLC exclusives for a month, timed exclusives on Call of Duty, to Sony getting them. And interestingly, it's, I think, because Dennis knew all the terms, what Microsoft was willing to pay, and then use that as leverage to extract more out of Activision. I'm sorry, out of PlayStation. But it also showed that he wasn't beholden to Microsoft, which is good, and that he was acting in the best interest of shareholders to make sure that he got the maximum value. So sure, but again, Sony, who bitched and moaned about all the reasons why Microsoft shouldn't have Call of Duty, they were talking about, then they would favor themselves with timed exclusives. PlayStation had timed exclusives for the last 9 years. And then they're the guys who complain about it. It's like, that's crazy. So if you're willing to pay for it, you should have a timed exclusive. I think $69 billion is enough for Microsoft to pay to get a timed exclusive. And oh, by the way, had Microsoft just said, we'll pay you $1 billion a year, give us Call of Duty 3 months early, Activision would have done it. So Sony, they could have really hurt Sony without buying Activision. That was my solution, by the way, had the deal gotten blocked. Pay Activision $2 or $3 billion a year and just say Call of Duty is exclusive Xbox and Game Pass, and you can never put it on any other console. Activision would have done it for $3 billion a year. And $3 billion a year, that gives Microsoft 23 years to get payback. So that's the crazy thing that Sony didn't get how screwed they were by that acquisition, and how there was nothing they could do about it. Thank you guys who are Patreon patrons and YouTube subscribers for keeping us in business. For those of you who are neither of those two things, if you have Amazon Prime, please remember to link your Prime account to your Twitch Prime account, and the instructions are below. You may have to open up a Twitch Prime account, but it costs nothing. Link those two things, and Amazon, for some crazy reason, pays SIFTD so you can watch me. So that's awesome. So help us out, please, because we need the support. We've seen that drop a lot because it lapses. You've got to renew it. So if you've ever done it before, it's easy to do again. Please remember to do it.